The quit ditch is not where a man stops living. It's where a man stops expecting. That moment in a man's life is not dramatic, not loud, not obvious. It's when something inside him clicks into silence. He's still moving. He's still responsible. He's still present. He's still functioning. But his hope, it goes offline. Not because he sinned, not because he failed, not because he's weak, but because life, disappointment, pressure, and unanswered longing pushed him past emotional capacity. And instead of falling apart, he shut down. Men don't always quit visibly. Most men quit quietly. The quit ditch is not where a man stops living. It's where a man stops expecting. He stops initiating. He stops dreaming. He stops praying the way he used to. He stops fighting for clarity. He stops believing anything good is ahead. He stops caring whether he's noticeable or desirable. His mind keeps going. His responsibilities keep going. But his soul goes offline. It's the most dangerous ditch of all, because a man can survive a lot of things, but he can't survive losing his will. There's a specific moment, a spiritual, emotional, psychological moment, when a man stops fighting and starts freezing. And if you don't recognize that moment, you'll mistake numbness for peace and shutdown for Men rarely quit by walking away. Men quit by shutting down. The anatomy of quit. The quit ditch is not the ditch of destruction. It's the ditch of detachment. And if you don't recognize that moment, you'll mistake numbness for peace and shutdown for surrender. This is how the quit ditch forms. Phase 1, overwhelm. Phase 2, inner fatigue. Phase 3, emotional flatline. Phase 4, quiet shutdown. Phase 5, functional living without meaning. The man still works, still serves, still attends church, still shows up for people, still does what he's supposed to do. But the lights inside have dimmed. Quit options are not overtly sinful. They're symptomatic. Porn cycles, spiritual dryness, emotional shutdown, DM spirals, disengagement, overworking, underconnecting, fantasy escapism, spiritual quiet, and loss of initiative. Quit options have a voice. John Acuff, in his book, calls them soundtracks, internal narratives that a man turns to when his emotional system is overloaded. Overloaded soundtracks feel like you feel done, but you can't explain why. You feel detached from your own goals. You feel like you're watching your life instead of living it. You don't feel angry. You feel blank. You aren't numb because you sinned. You're numb because you're tired. You don't want to give up, but you don't know how to start again. This is not laziness. This is collapse. A man can function after he loses motivation, but not after he loses meaning. A woman shuts down in relationship. A man shuts down in identity. Women retreat emotionally. Men retreat spiritually. This can be observed in the church where congregations are predominantly female. And where are the men? You're here. You thought you were looking for business marketing strategies, but the same principles apply. Personal branding is just a marketing term for core identity. Churches fill with faithful women while men stand at the fringes, not absent, just unactivated. And when activation is missing, identity drifts, and drift precedes quitting. Here's the twist. Men are not struggling with faith. They're struggling with positioning. The same problem every personal brand faces when the messaging doesn't match the mission. Businesses exist to solve problems. And similarly, the masculine is a solution-oriented outcome motivated machine. In marketing terms, you have the right product, but the wrong position. You can have strength, vision, loyalty, generosity, but if you've been positioned by culture, your church, or yourself as unnecessary, optional, or too much, your instinct is to step back instead of step in. Not because you lack value, but because there's a gap between your supply and the demand for the value you carry. At the Kingdom Singles brand, we're fluent in the language of marketing because marriage is the solution, and the solution requires clarity. Pursuit is not chemistry, pursuit is messaging. Pursuit involves strategy, identity, and consistency. In essence, the man is not the buyer. He's the seller who's accepted responsibility for serving the public, serving his industry, and serving his micro niche. The man is the entrepreneur, seeking to identify his ideal client persona, a micro niche that he knows, serves, leads, has grace and favor with, and is willing to commit himself to serving with a gold standard of excellence. You're not the flopping, inflatable caricature on the street corner trying to get attention. You're a dignified businessman capable of identifying, stewarding, and offering your personal brand solution to your right fit client. So when a man says, I want a beautiful, God-fearing woman that will submit to me in marriage, we can gently flip the mirror. Are you a ruggedly handsome, God-fearing man that she can find refuge in and submit herself to in marriage covenant? Are you emotionally available for the long haul, not just seasonally, but permanently? Are you seeking someone to lay your life down for? Are you seeking to get stuck with someone for the rest of your life? Did you answer with a resounding yes to all of the above? Incredible. We're glad you're here. Just like a brand broadcasts value, a man broadcasts identity. When your personal brand identity is clear, a godly woman doesn't have to guess. She can readily respond. In 1 Kings 19, we meet Elijah under the broom tree. He wasn't running from Jezebel. He was running from exhaustion, from disappointment, from emptiness. He didn't say, I want to leave my calling. He said, I cannot carry this anymore. This is the quit ditch. A man can function after he loses motivation, but not after he loses meaning. Maybe this is your story, the story of a kingdom man who didn't fall into sin or scandal. You fell into silence. You didn't quit out loud, you quit inwardly. And everyone around you thinks you're fine because you're fractionally functional. You're in masculine autopilot, quietly involved in flirtations with disassociation, watching your life happen by default instead of by design. Men don't lose their battles because they're weak. They lose them because their internal engine goes cold. And most men don't even know why it happened, only that they don't feel anything anymore. Quick pause. If this is resonating with you, here's why. Men don't randomly get stuck in stages. The eligibility gap is predictable and diagnosable. This series exposes the 4 ditches that keep kingdom men single, and this is your literal pattern interrupt. The free 9-question Kick-Ask eligibility assessment was designed specifically for 35 and over Christian men desiring marriage and children, because this life stage carries a unique pressure, urgency, and calling. We built this tool in response to the exact patterns men of God have shared in the KSB challenges and member collectives. This 9-question assessment is your bridge to measure your confidence level, leadership posture, and biblical readiness with accuracy. Not guesses, not vibes. Precision. Why does this matter? Because your future wife deserves a man who's ready, and this assessment shows you where you actually stand. Don't lose the momentum you're feeling right now. Click the link to see your score and bridge your eligibility gap today. Because many are eligible, but few are marriageable. Now let's continue. Men don't lose their battles because they're weak. They lose them because their internal engine goes cold. And most men don't even know why it happened, only that they don't feel anything anymore. You don't want to quit. You just don't know how to keep standing. Men don't quit outwardly. They unplug. It's a process of slow fade. Quitting gives a false sense of peace because it mimics calm, but it's simply inactivity. Don't let that smooth taste fool you. You're the head, not the tail. You were designed for heroic exploits. Masculine collapse pattern. Before a man collapses mentally, he collapses spiritually. Before he collapses spiritually, he collapses internally, emotionally. A man can function after he loses motivation, but not after he loses meaning. The pattern? Before you were engaged, hopeful, fighting, praying, leading. Now you're feeling flat, disconnected, uninterested, and unmotivated. You're engaged in predictable survival mode. Before, you believed effort mattered. You believed God was doing something in your singleness. You believed marriage was possible. You believed future children would call you dad. You believed the next season was worth preparing for. Now, you no longer expect things to change. You no longer feel future oriented. You don't feel connected to purpose. You no longer feel spiritual hunger. You no longer feel momentum. You no longer feel much at all. Have you heard of the 4 F's? The 4 F's are sociological stress responses, and the fourth F is the most astonishing and evasive. And it's smack dab where you are in the quit ditch. Your sympathetic nervous system responds to stress in one of these ways. Fight triggers energy. Flight triggers urgency. Freeze triggers shutdown. Fawn triggers invisibility, also known as escape. Fight can be confrontational. Fight faces off. Fight is not a quitter, whereas flight, freeze, and fawn are the escape artists notoriously known for a trail of unfinished business and often react similarly and sometimes treacherously. What's happening here is unprocessed pressure. Eventually, unprocessed pressure becomes the on-ramp for porn patterns, fantasy escapes, emotional avoidance, compulsive scrolling, sleep dysfunction, relational disinterest, spiritual flatness, low motivation, and self-disqualification. These are not a moral issue. It's a pressure issue. The quiet truth: men are not quitting life. Men are quitting effort. Effort is motivated by hope. And when hope collapses, everything else erodes with it. You don't want to quit. You just don't know how to keep standing. In Judges 16, we witness Samson in the masculine collapse pattern. Samson didn't collapse when Delilah cut his hair. He collapsed when his purpose became unclear. He didn't lose his strength first. He lost his meaning. That's how masculine collapse works. Maybe this is your story. The story of a kingdom man whose shutdown wasn't visible to others because you've remained responsible, but you're internally disengaged. You've mistaken numbness for peace, a lack of challenge as obedience, but your inaction is a lack of vision. You didn't quit life. You quit making an effort because hope for anything else is vague or seemingly beyond your reach. If you don't interrupt the quit ditch, the next phase isn't failure, it's despair. And despair convinces a man that nothing can be restored, even if God is willing. Every quit option men default to can be traced back to a nervous system overload. Why men go offline. This is not about discipline. This is about biology, psychology, and spiritual depletion. Here's what research shows. 1. Cortisol overload. When men carry chronic unresolved pressure, cortisol stays elevated. High cortisol causes emotional numbness, spiritual disconnection, withdrawal, fatigue, shutdown, loss of interest in pursuit. Men don't lose motivation, they lose hormonal equilibrium, which is the balance of key hormones like testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, insulin, and thyroid hormones for optimal energy, mood, metabolism, and sexual function. Losing hormonal equilibrium often means disruptions by aging, stress, poor diet, or inactivity, leading to fatigue, low libido, irritability, and weight gain, with balance restored through healthy lifestyle changes. 2. Testosterone decline. Low testosterone is not always about age. It can be attributed to chronic disappointment. When a man feels purposeless, unwanted, or overwhelmed, testosterone drops. That drop affects clarity, confidence, sexual energy, decisiveness, initiative, spiritual hunger, and relational drive. In truth, you don't want to quit. You just don't know how to keep standing. 3. Suicidal peaks. Men ages 35 to 55 face the highest suicide risk. Why? Because despair compounds in silence. Because pressure accumulates invisibly. Because men function long after their souls go offline. 4. Burnout. Masculine burnout is different. Men disengage faster than women because men are purpose-driven. Once purpose fades, everything else dims. A man can function after he loses motivation, but not after he loses meaning. 5. Fantasy. Fantasy escapes are not about lust. Fantasy escapism in men is often not about desire. It's about relief. Relief from pressure, relief from disappointment, relief from emotional exhaustion. Fantasy is not about the destination. It's the numbing agent men use when they feel trapped. The core concept here is men shut down quietly. The advantages, it allows them to keep functioning, but the outcome is quiet shutdown that destroys hope, identity, and covenant readiness. Every man you admire in Scripture faced the quit ditch, and God responded with restoration, not rejection. God restores the man. Samson drifted, not because he lost his strength, but because he lost his vision. He went numb. He went passive. He went spiritually offline. God didn't shame him. God resurrected his strength in his final chapter, meaning even a man who drifted far can finish strong. Saul's disobedience came from insecurity. He quit trusting God's timeline. He quit leading himself. He quit obeying under pressure. His quit was internal before it was external, meaning if you don't confront insecurity, you'll misinterpret pressure. Jonah didn't quit his calling. He quit his willingness. He fled. He froze. He hid. God didn't discard him. God redirected him, meaning God will interrupt your shutdown to reawaken your purpose. Peter quit publicly. He denied Christ with his voice, but Jesus restored him with his presence, meaning your shutdown does not disqualify you from restoration. The pattern? Every biblical man who quit was not punished. He was reactivated because every man you admire in Scripture faced the quit ditch, and God responds with restoration, not rejection. Moment of surrender. In his book, Soundtracks, John Acuff reframes overthinking as a super problem that can be turned into a superpower by changing the negative soundtracks or internal narratives in your mind. Likewise, the quit ditch is a defining moment, a line in the sand for masculine hope. Pushed to the extreme, the quit ditch can tempt a man to tap out of this life. And if it does, it's the exact place where death to self is achieved. That quit is the super problem that can be the superpower you need to permanently die to yourself. Just when you think you can't live anymore, that can't live anymore is the moment of surrender and submission to Jesus, who can defibrillate, resurrect, and renew masculine hope with a fresh fire, a focus, and posture of pursuit. Surrender is not quitting control, it's withdrawing from false control so that real authority can return. God doesn't restore men who disappear, He restores men who realign. Your ambitions are no longer for your sole benefit and satisfaction, but for the benefit of others, the benefit of your future wife and children, a life laid down for one's friends. Matthew 10:39 says, "Whoever finds his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." Turn your super problem into your superpower. Men don't need more motivation. You need accurate reflection because you can't surrender what you refuse to name. The rescue plan. The quit ditch doesn't destroy men loudly, it erodes them quietly. You don't wake up immoral, you wake up indifferent. And indifference can often feel spiritual until you realize it's actually avoidance wearing scripture. You're not done, you're drained. And drained men need restoration, not reprimand. At some point, you either name what's happening or the ditch names you. Here's a 5-step rescue plan. Step 1, masculine reactivation. You don't need hype. You need movement. Reactivation requires small daily decisions, rebuilding structure, reintroducing discipline, physical activity, reducing digital overstimulation, reconnecting with male community, or disconnecting from misery that enjoys your company. Men do not regain strength through withdrawal. They regain it through motion. There's a breaking point where the pain to remain is greater than making a change. Step 2, spiritual reattachment. You shut down because you disconnected from the source. Spiritual reattachment is not praying longer, fasting harder, reading more chapters. Spiritual reattachment begins with honesty. God, I'm numb, I'm tired, I'm empty. I need you to breathe on me again. Quit ditches are not brokenness, they're suffocation. Reattachment requires breath before battle, and the breath of life himself is for you. Isolation doesn't feel rebellious to men, it feels responsible. But responsibility without reflection becomes blind loyalty to dysfunction. Sometimes the most masculine thing you can do is submit your story to truthful measurement. That's exactly what the free 9-question Kick-Ask eligibility assessment provides. Truthful measurement without condemnation. If you're hesitating right now, that hesitation is data. And this assessment was built to interpret it. Which is greater, the pain to make a change or the pain to remain? Step 3, rebuild the altar. Samson rebuilt. Elijah rebuilt. David rebuilt. Peter rebuilt. The altar is the place where meaning returns. Rebuilding the altar looks like consistent prayer rhythm, creating sacred time, reconnecting with scripture, surrendering disappointment, confessing exhaustion, telling the truth before God about your numbness. The altar restores clarity. Step 4, restore vision. A man with no vision will always find a ditch. A man with restored vision will always find his path. Vision is not imagination. Vision is assignment. You can restore vision by asking these 3 questions. 1, what is God calling me to build? 2, who is God calling me to become? 3, what kind of husband and father is God shaping me into? Your future wife is not looking for a perfect man. She's looking for a man who refuses to quit. Step 5, identify your trigger ditch. Every quit ditch is triggered by one of the previous ditches mentioned in this series. Passivity ditch, despair ditch, rejection ditch, quit ditch. Identify your primary ditch because the quit ditch is usually the result of an earlier erosion. This gives you clarity on where to rebuild from. If you recognize yourself in this series, your next step isn't intensity, it's clarity. Because intensity without clarity is how men end up back in the same ditch 6 months from now. The free 9-question Kick-Ask eligibility assessment was built to show you your blind spots and where you're getting tripped up again and again. Now let's bring this all together using the copywriting framework called PASS. Problem, agitation, solution. Your problem? You're not quitting life, you're quitting hope with explanations. You're functioning on the outside while collapsing on the inside. You've lost the ability to feel forward. Everything feels flat, even the things that used to move you. You haven't lost desire. You've lost connection to the part of you that used to fight. You're not avoiding life. You're avoiding disappointment because you don't think you can take another hit. Your agitation? If you don't rise now, passivity will continue to masquerade as obedience. Rejection isn't just your experience, it becomes your identity. Distraction becomes your new normal. Shutdown is spiritualized. Calling feels theoretical. Marriage feels unrealistic. Fatherhood feels postponed indefinitely. Not because God withheld, but because clarity was avoided. The quit ditch isn't laziness, it's exhaustion without direction. Your solution? The answer isn't effort, it's surrender, but not the kind that disappears, the kind that reattaches. And the first act of that surrender is naming the real obstacle. That's why the free 9-question Kick-Ask eligibility assessment exists. Not to shame you, not to rush you, to show you honestly exactly where momentum was lost and where it can be restored. Because clarity comes before strategy, before effort, before another promise to yourself. From there, momentum returns. You reactivate your masculine drive. You reattach spiritually to the source. You rebuild the altar of meaning. You restore the vision God placed inside you. You identify the ditch that triggered the collapse. And you stand back up, even if trembling, because motion is the beginning of resurrection. You don't climb out by feeling ready. You climb out by moving. You've survived more than you realize. And the quit ditch is not the end of your story. It's the turning point. You may feel offline. You may feel numb. You may feel empty. You may feel disconnected. You may feel like your best energy is gone. But God has not taken his hand off you. Your future wife is not looking for a man who never struggles. She's looking for a man who gets back up. Rise out of the quit ditch. Stand again. Move again. Pray again. Lead again. Hope again. Your story is not done. It's still unfolding. This is a 5-part series that will help you avoid the 4 most notorious ditches that keep kingdom men single. You landed on the map right here, finishing part 5, exposing the quit ditch. Before you scroll, before you watch another video, before you promise yourself you'll deal with this later, take 5 minutes to name where you actually are, not where you hope you are, not where you used to be, where you are right now. The free 9-question kick ass eligibility assessment was built for this exact moment. When a man doesn't want to quit, but doesn't know how to keep standing, this isn't hype. This isn't pressure. It's clarity. In just a few minutes, you'll see where you actually stand in your readiness for godly marriage. You'll receive your score and the biblical steps to help you move forward with intention. Because intensity without clarity is how men end up back in the same ditch 6 months from now. And if you feel even a little hesitation right now, that hesitation is data. And this assessment was built to interpret it. Click the link in the description. Take the free 9-question kick-ass eligibility assessment, not to prove anything, but to tell yourself the truth. And when you're done, the full series, The 4 Ditches That Keep Men Single, is right here waiting for you. Tune in every week for marriageable insights. I'm Rowena Rodriguez, your marriageability guide, because many are eligible, but few are marriageable. Until next time, be encouraged. You're not single by accident. Your singleness is not happening to you, it's happening for you.